All right, welcome back. Our next guest says that if the left really wants to put an end to all the violence and rioting we've been seeing in the country, the protests, they should be working with the president instead of blaming him. Joining us now is James Carafano, national security expert and vice president of foreign and defense policy studies at the Heritage Foundation. James, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. How should the president be handling this situation? We've seen 100 days of this now.
Right. You know, a lot of people say, just go in and take over. So let's look from the practical side. If you added up every single federal law enforcement there is in the entire federal government, that's a little more than the size of the New York City Police Department. And most of those guys have day jobs. They're already guarding buildings. They're on the border. So even if the federal government wanted to move in and take over, there's not enough federal cops to do that. And then when you look at the National Guard, look, the Guard is great. They're great at guarding stuff, and they are great at providing assistance to civil authorities, but they're not really designed to deal with armed militias in American cities. They can do that fine in Mogadishu, but not so much in Portland. So the only way to make the streets of a city safe is when local, state, and federal officials work together. Then you can do that. As a matter of fact, we've got lots of examples where that's happened. And where it's not happening is fundamentally where city and local officials are creating space, really enabling the violence to take place, either by hamstringing the police, not letting them do their jobs, not letting the federal law enforcement come in and help them, or having district attorneys just create a door where they're not indicting people, or they're just putting them out on bond and throwing them back out on the street.
Yeah. You got an op-ed here we want to show people called "The Left Wrongly Attacking Trump's Efforts to End Rioting in Kenosha and Elsewhere," where you say to address the organized criminal violence destroying our neighborhoods, it's vital that local, state, and federal officials work together. That requires bipartisan cooperation, not partisan finger pointing. Should I take from that this is not going to be resolved until after this election?
Well, I don't know if it will be resolved after the election. You know, places like Portland and Seattle refuse to let the federal government work with them, then they're just going to continue to have the same problems. Like even in Portland, you know, we've seen signs that they've been increasingly turning to the federal government because they simply cannot manage this on their own. And you know, we often talk about, well, bring in federal law enforcement, bring in National Guard. Places like Kenosha, Wisconsin, that worked great. I mean, as soon as the National Guard showed up in Kenosha and additional resources came in, the rioting there evaporated. But the other really key role, the one thing the federal government can bring to the table, and you're going to see this running up to the election, and I think if we have the same administration, it will continue, which is investigating criminal activity, because the process of organizing criminal activity is in itself a very serious crime. The Congress created a law to go after that. It's called the RICO law. And RICO investigations are the way you're going to find out who's funding this, who's organizing it, who's directing it, and putting those people in jail and taking their organizations apart.